The talking tree had whispered its ancient wisdom, and the forest had chosen its heirs. But as Aric, Lyra, and Cael embraced their newfound roles, they quickly learned that their true challenge was not just guarding the forest, but protecting it from threats they could never have imagined. The harmony they fought so hard to preserve would soon be tested, and the true weight of their destiny would fall upon their shoulders. Months had passed since the three had become the guardians of the forest, and the peace they worked so hard to create seemed to hold strong. The seasons had changed, the trees bloomed in vibrant colors, and the animals thrived in their sanctuary. But the peace was fragile. One stormy night, as Aric patrolled the forest's edge, a strange chill filled the air. The trees groaned and whispered in distress, and the wind carried an unfamiliar scent, one of smoke and decay. It was a feeling Aric had never experienced before. He hurried back to the clearing where Lyra and Cael were waiting. Their faces were filled with concern as the wind picked up, howling through the branches like a creature in pain. "The forest is calling to us," Lyra said, her brow furrowed with worry. "Something is wrong." Cael pulled out an ancient scroll, the one that had been handed down to him by the tree. "There are rumors of a shadow growing within the forest, a dark force that feeds off the very life of the land." The three of them knew immediately what it meant. The forest was under attack by an ancient evil, a force that sought to drain its life force and disrupt the balance. But they weren't sure how to fight something so powerful. The shadow had been growing for years, feeding off the weakened parts of the forest. It was a dark magic, a force of corruption that had once been sealed away by the talking tree itself. But now, with the tree's power passing into Aric, Lyra, and Cael, the seal had weakened. And as the forest grew stronger, so did the shadow. The trio ventured deep into the forest's heart, where the trees grew older and more ancient. The air here was thick, and the earth beneath their feet felt cold, unnaturally cold. The closer they got, the more the darkness pressed against them, trying to make them turn back. "It's feeding off our fears," Cael murmured. "We need to stay strong." The three stood together, forming a circle and focusing on the energy that united them. The forest had given them its power, but it also required them to be brave and united in the face of danger. As they entered the darkest part of the woods, the trees twisted unnaturally, their branches reaching toward them like claws. The ground was slick with shadows that seemed to move and shift. "I can feel it," Aric said, his voice tense. "The tree's magic is weakening here." Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, a dark, spectral being, with eyes like burning embers. It was a manifestation of the shadow that had taken root in the forest. "You cannot defeat me," the creature hissed, its voice like the crackling of flames. "The forest will belong to me, and there is nothing you can do." The trio stood firm. Lyra's voice broke the silence, calm but powerful. "You are wrong. The forest will always find a way to heal, and so will we." The dark figure lunged at them, but the three of them stood their ground, channeling the strength of the forest. Aric's boldness, Lyra's compassion, and Cael's wisdom came together, and the magic of the forest surged around them. With a mighty roar, the figure dissipated into the wind, but the darkness still lingered. The trio realized that this was just the beginning of their struggle. As they continued their journey, the trio encountered another trial, their own doubts. Each of them had their own vision of how to protect the forest, and they began to argue. Aric's fiery nature clashed with Cael's calculated approach, while Lyra struggled to keep the peace. "The forest is mine to protect," Aric snapped, slamming his fist into a tree. "I'll fight anyone who tries to destroy it." "No," Cael countered, his voice cool but stern. "We cannot fight everything with brute force. The forest requires patience and understanding." Lyra stepped between them, holding up her hands. "We all have our strengths, but we need to work together. If we can't trust each other, the forest will fall." The silence between them was thick, and the weight of their roles felt heavier than ever. They knew that the dark force was still out there, waiting to strike again. But they also knew that they couldn't afford to let their differences tear them apart. As they walked on, each of them carried the weight of their own thoughts. Could they really trust each other enough to defeat the darkness? The answer came as a whisper through the wind. Trust the forest. It was the tree, speaking to them through the breeze. The moment was a reminder that they had been chosen because they each had something unique to offer. They just had to learn to combine their strengths. The trio finally reached the heart of the forest, the ancient place where the talking tree had first grown. It was here that they would face their greatest challenge, the source of the darkness. As they stood before the tree's roots, the ground trembled beneath them. The dark figure returned, this time more powerful than before. It was not just a shadow. It was a manifestation of everything the forest feared: decay, loss, and destruction. You have no chance, the shadow boomed. This is where it ends. But the trio had learned much during their journey. They had learned to trust in one another, to balance strength with compassion, and to face their fears. Together, they channeled the forest's magic, Aric's bravery, Lyra's heart, and Cael's wisdom into a single unified force. With a deafening roar, the dark figure tried to push them back, but it was too late. The forest itself rose up, its roots and branches intertwining with the trio's magic. The shadow screamed, but the power of unity and the forest's ancient strength overwhelmed it, finally banishing the dark force from the land. The battle had been won, but the forest had been changed forever. The trio stood together, watching as the sun began to rise over the forest. The trees were still there, but they were different now, stronger, more vibrant, and full of life. We did it, Lyra said softly, her voice filled with relief.
Cael nodded.
Together we did. Aric smiled, a rare softness in his eyes. We're not just guardians of the forest, we're its family. The tree's voice echoed through the breeze, gentle and wise. You have faced your challenges and have emerged stronger. The forest will always need protectors, but it also needs stewards who understand its true heart. The trio knew their journey was not over. They would continue to protect the forest, but they had also learned that their greatest strength came from within, the trust they had built, the lessons they had learned, and the love they had for the forest. As the day broke, they stood united, ready for whatever new challenges the future would bring. But as the trio watched the sun rise over the forest, they couldn't shake the feeling that there were more challenges ahead. The forest had many secrets, and they had only just begun to uncover them. Would they be ready for what lay in wait, or would the shadows rise once more? Only time would tell.